Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, you're going to meet one of my true heroes. Adina Peyton is in the studio. She is the head of GRAMIs, that is getting real about mental illness, and she turned tragedy into triumph. You're going to hear her incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
So this episode is about first responders and mental illness. If you think about the hardworking men and women who are first responders, police, firefighters, paramedics, they're called into action and they kiss their wife or husband goodbye in the morning and they don't know if they're coming home at night. And unfortunately, they see a lot of the worst in people. So they're responding to tragedies every single day and it affects them. But it's kind of the silent thing that happens in law enforcement, because truly there's a stigma. If you're a cop, you can't raise your hand and say to your sergeant, hey, I'm wrestling with something right now, because there's a stigma and they may take you off the streets, or perhaps there's a code of silence in which they look down on you because you're struggling. So there is a epidemic of cops, firefighters, paramedics who are wrestling with mental health illness. And that's why I have my next guest on the show. She's a returning guest, Adina Peyton. She's with GRAMI. It's getting real about mental illness. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're going to show a video in a minute that talks about your journey, but let's get real about mental illness and first responders. It's probably so undiagnosed that we don't even know how many cops, firefighters, paramedics are wrestling with something. Would you guess that it's greater than 50%?
I would put my money on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And am I right? Is there a stigma in law enforcement? As much as we like to say, you know, if you're hurting, go ahead and raise your hand, but they don't feel permission to raise their hand, do they?
Well, there's still a stigma in all areas that's getting better, but especially in first responders, particularly law enforcement, because of the issue of being taken off the job and being disrespected, or because it still has not changed culturally to where it's okay to not be okay.
Mm. And Adina has a powerful story. Let's go ahead and show this video.
What do you do when tragedy really strikes? When one of the people you love the very most meets an end that could have been prevented? It would be understandable for any of us to lash out, to point fingers, and to blame others. But that's not what Adina Peyton did after her son Brad was killed in a standoff with Huntsville law enforcement in November of 2020. No, after grieving and with the help of many others, Adina created an outreach program that would turn into a groundbreaking movement in less than 2 years. And now we have GRAMI, Getting Real About Mental Illness, an initiative created to support the very same community of first responders who experienced the tragedy of Brad's last moments. Now through this program, first responders who have suffered traumatic incidents in public service are able to seek private, confidential, licensed therapy without fear of reprisal or financial burden, and it's already making a big difference.
I met Adina, sadly, the first time after her son was tragically passed. She came to me very shattered, very broken, and I think it's amazing what she has turned from a true disaster, an absolute heartbreak, into something that's helping others.
Mental health care for the officers themselves is hugely important. I look at it as they're like a sponge, and they're absorbing the stress from everybody else's lives. But what about their own stress?
I think GRAMI is so important because, for one thing, I haven't been there to see the horrors that these first responders see. And they're human. We're all human. And it would be unnatural to not affect them. So they are there for us to protect us. We need to be there to protect them.
It's the secret sauce for me because it provides people with an opportunity to confront things in a very pragmatic and realistic way. There are going to be some very difficult and dangerous situations that people have to encounter in life, whether that's on the side of law enforcement, whether that's the person in crisis, whether that's the family that's trying to provide some help and support for that person. But this is an opportunity for people to understand that in spite of darkness, there might be some light and some hope.
It's not you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at it and say, this is pretty neat. This is a good resource for our public safety. And I am honored and blessed to be involved in it in the ground floor. I mean, mental health is a crisis in this country, and it affects the people that take care of the people.
In the last few years, we've recognized the fact that officer wellness is a huge component of a successful police department. So being able to have programs to help officers with the stress that they're absorbing is huge.
We need to see programs like this replicated in all of our communities throughout the state. Having access to mental health services for our law enforcement officers and working on stigma is critical, and Adina's doing a tremendous job with that.
Adina has done a tremendous job, and the word is out. GRAMI is making a difference, and momentum is building. However, if you know Adina, she's very quick to deflect all credit because she knows GRAMI could not and would not exist without your support. And it is that support that will allow us all to better take care of the people who take care of the people.
Adina, I'm sorry to make you relive this, but tell us what happened to Brad.
Well, he was having a mental health issue and was very depressed and had come home from actually a treatment center. And he left my house that night, crawled on top of a roof of a local restaurant, and 3.5 hours later, he had been shot. After coming off the roof, the takedown didn't work well, and so he was shot and killed that night.
Wow, and I have to imagine that you went through kind of an odyssey of emotions. So at first, were you bitter, or what did you go through?
Well, at first I thought that we would join together as a team in the community, and we would change the way that we dealt with people that were in a crisis. You know, not a criminal. It was called Justice for Brad. Mental illness is not a crime. And I think at the time, you know, sometimes money can come into play, but politically there was a lot going on at the time. And so it took a little while to sell that idea to the city that I was there to make a change, not to come after the police, if you will.
Were you bitter?
I was more bitter at the response that I got from the people I knew than the response of that, because I knew that they were probably doing the best that they could do, that we needed more training for the police, that it wasn't a bad police officer, it was just lack of how to deal with suicide by cop.
And you chronicled this in a book. We're going to put this on the screen, The Gifts of Pain, and you're one of the chapters. Tell us about your chapter.
Well, this was a compilation of 31 authors from a friend of mine, Adina Fernandez, which is here in the area. But mine was about from acting to authenticity, because before this happened, I really did try to be what everybody wanted me to be, as my son did, because he struggled to try to get validated. And so when nobody would help me or talk to me even, I had a year during the pandemic to sit with myself and get right with the Father and realize through this process that I had been trying to be somebody that I wasn't. So this was one of the gifts of that, was to find myself and realized that I was okay just the way I was.
Okay, we're going to show some video from our library about first responders who are in pain. We talked at the beginning of the show that it's kind of an undiagnosed PTSD. I mean, you can't be a cop and see the worst in humanity every single day for 20, 30 years, some of these officers, and not be affected by that. Talk about how common you think it is.
Well, after this kind of calmed down, we had the gentleman that was finally instigator of crisis intervention training, and he agreed to meet with me, which was huge at the time. And he talked to me about all the trauma, the flashbacks that he would have. But he reinforced that it was going to be very hard to implement this because no one wanted to say something that would cause their financial their financial situation to be damaged, their family or whatever, and that he could not tell the truth because he would have maybe lost his job.
Yes. And you have received a great international advocacy award. Tell us about that.
Well, a member that I didn't know about had nominated me, and it was the 2024 International Crisis Intervention Advocate Award. And crisis intervention is the hero to me, that and co-responders, because that calms a situation down. Like even in a marriage, when tempers are flaring or you have someone that's afraid on a roof, when they see a big, forceful, scary thing, then they're going to get more scared. They're going to react more. But if you can calm that down, then cooler heads prevail, if you will. And it has made a tremendous difference in Huntsville, Alabama.
Wow. And there's something you're very passionate about. It's called Protector of the Guardians. Share that story with us.
Well, for a year, I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. And 2 years later, I have joined together. By one, I was going to bring this fella in to teach our local police officers. And two, it was this big fella, bigger than life, that was a big cop down in Florida. But we all met up at the convention, and I told them that I wanted to become a bigger part of their world. And they contacted me to be their ambassador. So I thought, that is as cool as it gets to be able to be an ambassador to the police or retired police. And they're from all over, but they're doing tremendous work so that law enforcement stays healthy. And, suicide is such a huge problem for law enforcement, and they're doing a fantastic job.
So do you feel, you've been doing this for several years now, do you feel like you're making a difference? Or is there still that code of silence in police and firefighters and paramedics where you just don't raise your hand? Do you feel like you've made a difference?
Well, not sounding prideful, because it's not about me, but the program has made a huge difference in Huntsville, Alabama. So we're hoping to spread that throughout the nation like mad. But the more we talk about it, the more that we reward our law enforcement by taking them to the international convention, which is where best practices are on crisis intervention. Sure. And then we have offered a free fund so that any first responder that has suffered trauma, which is all of them, they can tap into that fund without anybody knowing except our treasurer, and go to any licensed therapist that they want to go to without anybody ever knowing about it.
That's so beautiful. Have you had some officers take you up on it?
We have. Of course, we don't know who.
Yeah.
And the program has been slow on that end because that's the hardest for them to take advantage of, because there's still a trust issue.
Sure.
But the more that we submit to them, we are there to serve them, not the other way around. But we keep serving, and then they spread that word, and so it's changing families.
And this completely changed the trajectory of your life. I mean, this is your mission, your ministry now. Do you get out of bed with a smile on your face every day?
Most of the time I do. Sometimes it's been a lot of work, and I was not really a organized type person when it started, but I have learned so much And it's been beautiful to meet the other people that serve the community. So it's a day at a time.
Do you believe Brad is smiling from heaven above right now?
I do.
Mom, thank you.
He's not always smiling when I do things, but he is smiling now.
That's
Yes.
beautiful. We've got about a minute left, so Adina, talk to the audience about how they can come and support you.
Okay, right now our program is in Madison County, Alabama, but I am encouraging you to contact us and look at the tenets of our program, because it's very simple to administer. I've done the front work, and that template can cover any town in the United States or abroad, and it really is a very simple way to immediately affect the community. We take no money, we don't no salaried positions, but our website is Getting Real About Mental Illness, GRAMIUS.org. GRAMIUS.org. My name is Adina Peyton, so you can Google me, GRAMI. It's Huntsville. So if not, you can contact the Jeff Crilley Show, and any of our people on the board would be happy to sit with you and help you develop that in your city.
And Adina, it makes us all safer. I mean, we all want police and firefighters and paramedics to be mentally well when they put on their badge at night. So talk about how this just making people well helps society.
I'm glad he asked me that, because when the fight was over, we would have senior police officers tell us, "Ma'am, thank you, because we didn't know how to handle mentally ill people." That is not a police officer's job. And so these co-responder units, which it is their job, when they're working together, it totally changes every job site that they or not job site, but mental health condition that they might come across.
Well, I just appreciate your friendship and just the work you're doing in the world. And thank you so much for turning tragedy into triumph and reminding us all what it's all about. Adina Peyton, we're going to end with her website, which again is GRAMIUS.org. The great Adina Peyton. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.